Any prayer requests? We'll start over here with Sinclair. Children. Country.
My far better half.
Oh, yes.
Feeling good this morning.
Yeah, Sherry's not feeling well. Yeah.
Me.
And you. Okay. Nicole?
It's just with our house building process, it's creeping slowly.
Yep.
House felt like yesterday.
Yeah, that would be. I've been in that process, the house building project. That's yeah. Nick and Leanne understand that. All right. Sherry?
Yeah, I have a coworker who's a friend that has a 17-year-old was on his way home from work last week, and there were two guys racing on 441. He got caught in the middle. He was in the trauma unit and lost his life.
Who's this?
Friend of mine at work, her son was involved in a car crash that he had nothing to do with. Those two guys were racing on 441, and he lost his life yesterday morning.
That's not good.
No, there's no reason for it. You know, the two other guys walked away with nothing. It was great, but they will be charged with vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah, and there is, I don't care who you are, and why it happens. If you're part of the death of someone, it hurts you.
Yeah.
It hurts you.
Yeah.
Tom, I'm going this way, so you just dropped right in line. What's Yeah, got any prayer requests? I'm assuming your sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Holly.
Yeah, we can pray for that.
Yep. Okay. Nick, Leanna, anything happened in your life?
Anna's been fairly uncomfortable lately. Only about halfway there.
Are you talking about being around her uncomfortable, or her actual? Yeah, the pregnancy's not been easy. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, we'll be praying for that.
I have like a personal one, but it's more teaching the kids the school year. I guess it's only my second year, but it's always like nerve-wracking. And just, can I do this, Lord?
Yeah, homeschooling. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Okay. BJ, Chris. Family. Yeah. Henry?
I'm trying to find balance in my life. But thyroid, it's weird. I don't know if it's the thyroid or I'm just getting old, but sometimes I'll have a day where I try to walk 5 feet away and I'm going, and then other times, okay, but it's weird. You get artificial medicine, your thyroid messes with everything, your body. I'm just trying to keep working till I'm 70, and sometimes it's a bit challenging. You wonder if you're about to kick the bucket or if you're going to keep going for another 30 years.
Yeah. You got a couple years on me, and I've wondered that sometimes. So, Hank?
I'm thankful for friends, but I'd like to be a better witness to them.
It's a great request. John, Jen?
My family is a lot of drama. And the kids.
And I'm sorry to hear that last one.
And the kids.
And your kids? Oh, yeah, kids. Yep. Yep. Okay. Gary?
It's just customers, salvation. And stuff.
Christy Lance?
My grandmother,
Yes.
salvation.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you said that because on the prayer request sheet it doesn't say it's salvation. So I was asking Brother Rick, I'm like, I don't think I've ever met him. I have, okay. And so I was like, buddy, right? Buddy, okay, yep. So I will now know that I'm supposed to be praying not just for the health, but his salvation. Okay, good.
I had a tumor, but they thought it was cancerous, but when they did a biopsy, it was benign, but he's still having like other issues, like salvation's the most,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
important thing right now.
Okay, yeah, that's huge. Okay. Are you having,
I have an update on my sister.
oh, awesome.
She had her blood work last week. So it was really recent that she had the blood work. Most of the numbers were dropping. It wasn't looking good. Then she drastically changed her diet and went back, got the results on Monday, I think, or no, it was like Thursday or Friday. Her protein, which they were looking, once it spikes, they'll have to start treatment. But it actually dropped, and the doctor was really impressed with her numbers, like all the numbers, because the things that had been going down a month ago were going up just slightly, but still, and she feels a lot better.
Awesome. Good.
Answered her.
Jen, did you?
Yeah, my brother filed for divorce. So just pray that God would get him.
Yeah. Good. All right, let's pray. Hey, Father, I thank you that we can come to you. I thank you that there's a lot of prayer requests in here. I thank you that you can remember things even better than I can. Well, there's no even. That you can remember things that I don't remember. But God, I ask you, Sinclair wants us to pray for his wife who's not feeling well, for his kids, for himself, and I think I recall him saying our country. But if not, I'm sure he's thinking it. God, I ask that you help Jeff and Nicole with building a new house, and their family's growing, and things are changing, and they want it to happen quickly. But God, I ask you to help them to deal with what they have to deal with as it's going on. God, I ask you to help. Sherry's got a friend, a co-worker, whose son was killed in a car accident. And God, I ask you to help that family to turn to you, and God, please keep us safe on the road. God, I ask God that you take care of Holly, Rachel's sister, but God, we are grateful to hear that the numbers look better than they used to. That is good news. God, I ask you to help Chris and BJ want us to pray for family. We all have family that are having issues, and I don't know all the ones that are going on in their life, but I know that we all have family members that are not going the right direction, and God, I help Henry. He's not as young as he used to be, and he's trying to balance work and life and all these other aspects. And at the same time, he's had some physical issues in times past, and they're kind of hurting him sometimes. And God, I ask you to help him to have wisdom on how long he's supposed to work and how he's supposed to work and all that other stuff. And God, I ask you to help the same thing for me, because I'm balancing of things is not my strong suit. God, I ask you to help Hank. He wants to. He has friends that he cares about a lot, and he wants to be able to talk to them about you. And I ask God you help him with that. I'm grateful to hear that as a prayer request. That's an awesome prayer request. And God, I ask you help Leanna. She's partway through her pregnancy, and it has not been comfortable. And I don't fully understand what that means, but I ask God that you just help her to become comfortable, and that this pregnancy will go well, and that she and Nicole and I shouldn't have gone down that road, because there's a bunch of women actually that are pregnant, but that all these pregnancies will go well, and these babies will be born with all the fingers and toes, and that moms will be healthy and families will be healthy. God, I ask that you help Jen's family. All the drama, and especially, I guess, the drama with Jeremy, her brother, not doing what's right. That he will do what's right. That he will be the husband he's supposed to be and the man he's supposed to be. And if they don't make the right choices on that, it just, yeah, I've always liked him, but I want him to do what's right, God, and I know that's how Jen feels too. God asked you to help Gary's got people that he's around regularly, and he's a witness, just like Hank. He wants to be able to give the gospel to his clients that he's around on a regular basis, and God asks you to help him to do that. I also ask God to help his son with his skin issues. God, he's facing those facts very well, but I can't imagine that being easy, and so I gotta ask you to help him. God asked you to help Christy's grandpa. Buddy, our biggest prayer request is that he'll come to know you, but also that he won't have any cancer issues, and that he'll be healthy. And God, we thank you for the things you've done and the things you will do. In Jesus' name, amen. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 28. And I'm going to start at the beginning of the chapter. I'm going to read 1 and 2. And it says this. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for war to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, you surely know that you will go out with me to battle, you and your men. And David said to Achish, surely you know that what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever. So, the Philistines and Israel are about to do battle. This was inevitable because one, they're one of the groups that Israel was supposed to wipe out in the beginning, and two, Israel is where the Philistines want to be. And basically, Achish said to David, hey David, you've been living in my area, you're part of my people now. And he almost asks it as a question, but he doesn't. He almost says, surely you're going to, That's like, there's been times where Linda said, surely you're going to take out the trash right now. That's not a, maybe you'll do it. That's a command, basically. And now there's two reasons why he's doing this. One is he's doing it because probably David would be, handy to have as one of and his men in battle, partly because they knew Israel very well, but also he needs proof that David's going to be on his side. And David says, hey man, surely you know what I can do. In other words, hey, I'm bad to the bone. Don't mess with me. I'm the one you want on your side. And then Achish says, therefore, you're going to be one of my guardians forever. He's saying, hey, if you do this, you're going to have a position in my army. I look at this and I don't know, because David didn't. We'll get into this obviously, but David didn't fight in this war. But even acting like he was willing to fight against Israel does not settle well with my stomach. It doesn't feel right. It's like he's going up the ranks of the enemy. But then again, don't we all have to do that in some ways? I mean, we live in a world where the world is really anti-us. I think, I don't know if some of you heard about this, Don Lemon was on something where at least it was broadcast, and he made a comment about how, talking about how people, he said they have a deity complex with the founding fathers of the United States, and he's like, Christians know that no one's perfect, not even Jesus was perfect. And I'm like, dude, you're so wrong. Not only that, you're accusing Christians. The whole foundation of Christianity is Jesus was and is perfect and is deity. But the whole world is trying to come against us. They're not just not wanting to be Christian. They're anti-Christian. They're anti the things. A lot of things I look at and go, I don't know if I can find a verse that says this or that. But there's things that are written in our heart that we know. Like, basic ones. Like, a man's supposed to protect his wife. Okay? There's people that are have gotten to the point where they'll attack those things, and I go, all right, maybe, and I'm not saying that we have to get violent or like that, but I'm saying being protective of your spouse it makes sense. It's written in you, in your heart. Well, the world has become anti any of those things. And it is coming against us. And at the same time, we have to live in it and work up the ranks of the enemy almost. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a few of you that have are in positions in the medical field, in governments, in engineers, in teaching, in construction, and in so many things. And we're actually working for people that are really, in some ways, the ones that hate what we stand for. And I'm not trying to give David an out, but I am saying it is something that we find ourselves having to do. Verse 3, it says this. Now, Samuel had died, and all Israel had lamented for him and buried him in Ramah, in his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the spiritists out of the land. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, it talks about Samuel dying. So obviously we already knew this. I always find it kind of interesting. I don't know why. Obviously, the names of the books of the Bibles, if you guys don't know this, and the verse numbers. Our book, Samuel, even after Samuel dies. And I find that kind of funny. But you knew he was already dead a couple chapters back. So why are we needing to know this here? It's a setup for what's going to happen. And the same thing with what Saul did. Saul kicked out all the witches, and the people that were into sorcery of any nature. Now, what to me that I like hearing about that is he's like Gideon. Remember Gideon? The first act Gideon did was he ripped down the idol to Baal, and ripped it and cut it into pieces and used it as an altar for God. This is set up. And verse 4 is even more set up. It says, Then the Philistines gathered together and came and encamped at Suman. Saul gathered all Israel together and they encamped at Gilboa. This is all set up. Verse 5 says this. Then Saul saw the army of the Philistines. He was afraid and his heart trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, or by the prophets. Saul was scared. Now, do you remember when Saul was asked to be king, or told he was king, where he was hiding in the cloak, the closet? Remember, he was scared. He had no heart. And then something happened. What happened? The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And then he became courageous and he became this fantastic leader. When Saul was beginning of his kingship, he was an amazing leader. And then the Spirit of God left him because Saul disobeyed God directly. And everything all that courage and that leadership and that strength left, and suddenly he wanted to hide in the clothes closet again. Not only that, he felt and was right, God had left him in the sense that God was not directing him anymore. Have you ever felt that way? That like you're praying and God's not answering? that that you can't see God in anything. Now, there's times that that's not true. I've been in my life where there's been times where I thought I can't hear God, I can't see God, I don't feel God, and it's almost like I don't know if you're there, right? But that wasn't true. He was there. I'm sure you've all heard the poem. I'm not going to even quote it. The footsteps, you know what I'm saying? Where, when you don't know he's there, he's the one that's carrying you and all this other stuff. There's some truth to that. But then there's other times when, like Saul, he couldn't get in connection with him. Or Samson. Remember Samson? Suddenly the strength of God was gone. That gave him the power to kill all these people and do all these things. And suddenly he's like, I have no strength. I have no connection with God. There is times when that happens. And you know when that is? A lot of times is when you cut it off. The times that you're like, where's my relationship with God? Why can't I not have the connection? It is that you've made a sever. I've talked to people, I almost said the person's name. I talked to a person that used to come to this church, and they had been involved with some other people. They had left coming to church. They weren't around Christians. They weren't reading their Bible. They were talking to people that were very strong atheists and other things. And they were talking to me, and they were asking me these questions that were so young, so childish, because they had left hearing truth, that they started to see lies as truth. And it was a while back, to put into consideration. It was back when Jeremy Sissio was a little kid. I was like, hey, you know what I should do is I should bring Jeremy Sissio, the 8-year-old, and he can answer all those questions for you. Because what happened is you've been so far away from God that you are below, dumb little Jeremy. I can say it because he's not here. I would have said it if he was here. I would have enjoyed it more. You have gotten to the point where you need a child to answer the questions. I could have used Zoe if Sophia was, if I had, she was alive at that point. I could have said, let's have Sophia teach you. Because you have walked away from God so far you can't see him. When I'm really walking in the Spirit, I'll look around and see these people going to the riots and the Corona and all these other things, and I'll say, look at Satan. That's proof that there's a God. I'll pick up a leaf that's fallen down and go, this leaf is here, it's pretty, and it's dying, and it's turned into a pretty color, and it's going to turn into mulch and help other things grow. Things die so other things can grow. There's the picture of the gospel. When you're at the spot where you're supposed to be, you can see it. By the way, that is Hank, Carrie, Greg pointing at me too. There's always pictures that make it. God made it so that there's things all the time that we can bring back to the gospel. I mean, if nothing else, when they ask you how you're doing, you can say, I'm doing better than I deserve, right, Sinclair? But it's amazing because there's so many things that point to him. And they're so blatant, and it's that they don't want to see it. God doesn't leave you unless you've left him. And also, there's times that you might not feel him, like the whole, footprints in the sand kind of thing, but God is there. So Saul is scared because he does not have the connection he had in times past. Verse 7, it says this, Then Saul said to his servants, Find me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, In fact, there's a woman who is a medium at El Dor. the guy, the people he asked, I wonder if they thought in their mind, boss, king, we already found all the mediums for you, and we killed them. Because you told us in time past to kill them. By the way, was one of the things he did in times past that was good, and he's going against it. He's backtracking. He's backsliding. He's going. See, what happened was he left God. Then he looks at God and says, God, why aren't you here? And then he says, well, if you're not going to do what I want, I'm going to go to someone else. Have we not? This is, you know what this is a picture of the word, this modern word that I hate with a solid passion. I've heard people call it the deconstruction. The deconstruction of people's Christianity. They talk about this walking where it slowly goes to the point where it's not there anymore. And they say, I'm not this anymore. This deconstruction, the term breaks my heart. But it's one step away from God saying, hey, I see less of God. I'm going to go further away from God. And then they go, hey, I'm going to run to whatever other religion, some ism or jism or whatever. And then listen to this. The area that he went to go to this witch was in the Philistines' territory. He not only backslid as far as jeopardizing himself and going to who he knew he wasn't supposed to, he went to the area he was not supposed to go. You know what? I've said this a bunch of times. I think we have proof within our families and in our own lives. Sin always takes you further than you want to go. Right? Right? We can all talk. We can talk about it in our own lives, and we can also talk about it in other people's lives. By the way, if you are a child of God, that's the only thing that stops it. I was talking to Lance about that just recently. We're talking about how there's things that could have gone way worse, that we saw the protection of God even before we made a profession of faith. And sometimes that God was protecting us from our own mistakes, our own actions. And then there's others that don't have that. He totally went the wrong direction. Verse 8 through 10. And so Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went, and two men with him. He came to the woman by night, and he said, please conduct a seance for me, and bring for me the one I shall name to you. Then the woman said to him, look, you know that what Saul has done. He has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. First off, he disguised himself. At first, in my mind, I was thinking maybe he put on the glasses with the big nose kind of thing. But I don't think all he had to do, because in those days, people didn't have pictures of Saul everywhere. He just had to change his outfit. He just had to take off the kingly robes. But I think in some ways, this was a picture of what he was doing. He was laying aside his position. He was laying aside his position as king of his people, of God's people, to go to the enemy's turf, to go to the enemy's worshiping. And then he goes and she says, hey, this is a snare. I don't know if you heard about this guy, Saul. He's like, I think I could have heard of him. Yeah. And she was scared. She's like, you may be a narc, And she was scared for a good reason. So you got two scared people together, and then he did something to me that has such audacity. He swore to the Lord. Unbelievable. You want to talk about You want to talk about using God's name in vain? Holy smokes! By the way, I've listened to more than one Jewish rabbi teach on the Ten Commandments. They believe "Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain" is the key one, because they don't believe it has to do, and other Christian biblical theologians believe taking the Lord's name in vain is not just saying His name, but it is holding His name as in you are a Christian and not living it. If you, as a person who has claimed the name as Christ and then are living a life that is not His, you are taking His name in vain. And when you take it, when you realize that you are, if you're walking about having claimed that name, especially when you claim that name when you were baptized, but claiming it in any sense of the form and not living it, you are violating that one. And Saul was doing it to the utmost. I mean, he was going to a medium and going to a spiritist. And can I tell you a story about my life? One time, I was in Albany, New York. I was at Word of Life at that time. I was talking to, you've been there probably, right? And I had just talked to someone and led them to the Lord. They prayed with me. It was one of the very powerful moments of my life. It went extremely smoothly. And I was, we were about to head back to campus, and we were just walking in some stores. I walked in a store that was, as I walked in, I realized it was all witchcraft stuff. Now, at that point, I don't know what I thought about witches and demons and stuff like that, or how powerful what is a connection, or what kind of connection there is. But all I know is the two girls that were at the cash register looked at me, they got scared, and they walked out. Now, maybe it was just that they both had to go to the bathroom at the same time, but in my mind, it was a sign, greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. And I was like, okay. They realized that I was, at that point, I felt like I was glowing like Moses, because I got to, just lead someone to the Lord. And I was like, so I always take it as a sign. But this is who Saul's going to. Verse 11, and a woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." Then the woman saw Samuel. She cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul." First off, who do you want? Have you ever heard that saying, or people ask this question? If you could talk to anyone, dead or alive, who would you talk to? And people are like, oh, I want to talk to Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. And I heard someone say, if anyone actually really thought about this question, it doesn't matter who you talk to. If you get to talk to someone dead and ask them, how's death? That would be the greatest question to ask. It doesn't matter if it's Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or my uncle, or great uncle that's passed away or something, you know what I'm saying? To ask anyone about death that's experienced it would be the greatest question to ask. By the way, Jesus, but, so then she cries out. Now, maybe it was that she got spooked by who she was in front of. Suddenly she realized she was talking to Saul. But I think what it was she never had someone actually appear before. It was a scam, or it was a deception in of itself. I don't believe that you can talk to people that have died in times past. I do believe that spiritists or mediums or witches have maybe some connection with the demonic realm. But suddenly she saw a person that had died in times past, and she screamed. She probably screamed for two reasons. Suddenly she realized that there's someone in front of her that was dead, and then she realized, hey, wait a minute, who's this guy? That asked for the name and realized it's Saul, the guy that's killing all the people that do her occupation. I want two things for us to get out of this, and one, I think she knew what she was doing was wrong and was deception, but also she knew what she was doing was wrong and deception with Saul. And verse 13 says, and the king said to her, do not be afraid what you did see. And the woman said, I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth. He's like, yeah, you're okay. I'm not going to kill you. He said, put aside that. What do you see? He was saying, look, I'm actually here for this reason. And then she says she sees a spirit coming out of the earth. There's a lot of people that try to figure out what these words mean. And the truth of the matter is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. She saw Samuel. Okay. The verse 14 says this. What is his form? And she said, it's an old man coming up, and he's covered with the mantle. And Saul perceived it was Samuel. And he stooped his face to the ground and bowed down. So the guy was dressed like Samuel. So he's like, okay, I guess that's it. In verse 15 it says, now Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? And Saul said, I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me, and does not serve me anymore, and neither by prophets nor by dreams. Wherefore I've called you, that you may reveal to me what I should do. I love that Samuel, the only person we've ever heard about that came back by a medium or anything like that was not, brought back to life by God. The first thing he says is, why did you disturb me? Why did you bring me back here? Now, I have often wondered, my 5-minute funeral sermon that I prepared in my mind, and I've done once, twice, is the verse Jesus wept, and that verse was talking about how Jesus was brokenhearted over the people because they were sad because Lazarus had passed, but also many theologians believe that Jesus was weeping because he was going to bring Lazarus back from dead, and poor Lazarus is going to be bummed for the rest of his life, going, man, this is nothing compared to where I was. No one wants, when I think it was Becky I was talking to about just recently about her dad. Someone saying, what would you feel like if might have been Carrie, we're talking about your dad, about how he says, if something happens to him, is he going to feel bad for his kids, not having his, and he said, when I die, I'm not going to be worried about them. I'm going to be in heaven. So no one wants to come back. And Saul basically said, look, it's a mess. And that's why I called you. And Samuel's basically saying, hey, your urgency is not my emergency. In verse 16, I'm going to read 16 through 19. It says this. And Samuel said, why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and have become your enemy? And the Lord has done for himself as he has spoken by me. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, David. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord, nor execute his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore, the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel from you into the hands of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. And the Lord will deliver the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. I think you guys all heard the joke about the baseball pitcher who an angel came to him in the middle of the night and said, I got good news and bad news. And he's like, all right, well, tell me the good news. He's like, there is baseball in heaven. And the pitcher's like, awesome. What's the bad news? He's like, you're pitching tomorrow. And in some ways, that's what Samuel's saying to Saul. He's saying, hey, tomorrow you're going to be here. But I think the best part of it is it's a complete rebuttal. He's like, what? Why are you coming to me to ask about what God thinks? The reason why you can't hear God is because you rejected him. Going back to what I already said earlier. Hey, I'm agreeing with Samuel. No, that you did this. You severed this tie. You caused this consequence. Go, John.
Go along with that, this is a, if I forgot what it is, this is a great picture, a sad picture of many times how we are with sin. There's nothing really new that we're searching. We want some kind of joy or satisfaction or excitement that we can have in God doing things right, with our family and our marriage. But we leave that and we're still looking for the same things as elsewhere, like here. Saul, he left. He went, like you said, lost and low. And what did he want? He wanted Samuel. Which was, his picture of God's counsel.
Right.
Which he could have kept God's counsel right along.
Yeah.
He kept that relationship, he kept maintaining it. Well, he left him. And what is he doing? He's going down the dredges to look for that same thing that he could have right along.
Right.
Many times we do that, and I'm saying across many realms. And there is a level of shame that we know Saul. Saul was sneaky over. And there's nobody that men don't prowl and stroll down the street corner. They're sneaking around. They're ashamed, right? They're ashamed to go and live your life of drugs, whatever it is. And we know it's probably looking for the same excitement or thrill or joy that we can have in the life God's given us. Right?
Yep. Yes. I think that the first point you made is something I've thought often. When people go searching for something that's wrong, it's actually that they're just searching for the thing that they could have had correct in the correct area if they had just done it the right way. Because people in so many categories, and everything from marriage to a relationship with God, and that's what he was doing, and basically, basically Samuel gave Saul bad news. Verse 20 says this: immediately Saul fell full length on the ground and was dreadfully afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day or night. I don't think that it was the lack of food that was the biggest cause. It was the biggest cause that he was told, tomorrow you're going to die. Tomorrow you're going to pay for the consequences of your actions. One of the things that we all want is to not have to pay for the consequences of our actions. We want forgiveness. We want payment for our sins. As John said, there's certain desires we all have in our heart. And you know what? There's only one way you can get that, and that's through Jesus. I'm going to read the last part here. It says, the woman came to Saul and saw that he was severely troubled and said to him, look, your maidservant has obeyed your voice and has put my life in your hands and heeded the words which you spoke to me. Now, therefore, please heed also the voice of your handmaid, and let me set a piece of bread before you and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. So his servants together with the woman urged him, and he heeded their voice, and he rose from the ground and sat on the bed. Now the woman had a fatted calf in the house, and she hastened to kill it. She took flour, kneaded it, baked unleavened bread from it, and she brought it before Saul and his servants. They ate, and they rose, and they went that night. The only thing that comes to my mind on this is this, is that physical things can affect our spiritual outlook, in the sense that he was drained because he wasn't taking care of himself. But you remember the story way back in the beginning of Saul's life was he did that to his whole army. he didn't let them eat. And Jonathan ate some honey. Saul was putting that same kind of curse on himself, but you know what? He overlooked it. This is one of the things that irritates me about governments is they always put rules on us, but then they don't live by them themselves. That irritates me so bad. And then when I see that happening, then I really don't want to obey them in any category.
It kind of makes you wonder, because here's the city of Nineveh. They all fasted, and God spared them.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, was that on his mind? Was he trying to fast to get God's...
Yeah, maybe he was, but he gave up on it. Yeah, he might have been fasting for like correct, but you know what? No, he wasn't fasting in the correct way because he went to a witch. But here's the thing. He might have been trying to do multi ways of getting things right. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to fast, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But the thing was, he gave up. And you know what? Maybe one of the reasons why he gave up and ate food was because he already knew what was going to happen the next day. He's going to die. And so's his sons. I bet you, now I don't know, most of us, I think, would go to say, if you said, Greg, tomorrow you're going to die. I'm like, oh, I'm not really too excited about that. I'm going to start working real hard to find Linda a new husband for her because she keeps on saying she's not going to remarry and I want her to have someone help raise the kids. But if you said tomorrow your girls are going to die, that would be devastating. And that's what he heard. You know, seeing Sinclair walking here, what does Sinclair always pray for? His kids. You know, the thought of your children dying, as you know, Samuel told Saul, your kids are going to die tomorrow. That would be devastating. So, and that was because of his actions. Let's, you know, if nothing else we can get out of this, let's not be like Saul. Let's obey. Let's be submitted to God, and let's not turn to other avenues when we don't have the connection with God we want. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your word. I thank you that you have a way for us to be right with you. I ask God you help us to turn to that. In Jesus' name, amen.